here because you want more. More engagement, more delight, more fun, more learning. You're hungry for change and willing to take action.
If you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original.
Welcome to the E-Learning Scenario Design Podcast with Anna Sabramowitz.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
Let's take learning to the next level.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Anna Sabramowitz, and today I have a very special guest. Her name is Siobhan Brown-Calderbank, and she's the Director of Learning and Development at Intellex. She's also a keynote speaker, consultant, award-winning author, and project professional. Siobhan has over 20 years of progressive experience in transforming businesses, leading change, and developing leaders. And she has spoken to diverse groups at conferences, events, seminars, and planning sessions to motivate individuals to work more collaboratively. And I hope we dig into that a lot today. She's also spoken to audiences with attendance of over 2,500 people from 71 countries. Okay, that must have been intimidating. You have to tell us your tips for speaking in public. That's crazy. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. And I do apologize. Your name is so awesome and unique. And I'm going to ask you to probably say it a couple more times before we finish.
Okay. Well, it's Siobhan. And yes, I know I've had that all my life, even from grade school, where they would mess up the name and they do the roll call with like Sayobahan. Yeah, I know it's me. Yeah, it's after a while when you get the substitute teacher and they say your name, okay, it's me. Before you even say the name, it's Siobhan. It's all good. Don't even worry about it.
Thank you. Oh my. So tell me, how did you get into the L&D profession? Like, what's your story? You've been in this for quite a long time until you don't look at.
Yeah.
What drives you?
Well, yeah, I've been doing L&D for almost 20 years, if you would believe. And I originally started off my career and I wanted to be a lawyer, like Claire Huxtable from The Cosby Show. So I was studying law at the time at Seneca College, and I was like being a paralegal, which is, just like a legal assistant, but this time you can actually take on your own clients. And I thought, well, I'd like to be a lawyer. And I went back to school and I was doing that. And then I was working as an assistant tenant duty counsel. And then my clients were not always as forthcoming with the information. And then they, the joke where they talk about like lawyers are liars. Not all of them are, but because you're regurgitating what your clients are telling you, you realize that sometimes they're not always as truthful. So I thought, okay, this is really not for me, but I do want to go back to school and get my degree. So I actually went to school to study information technology management. And while I was doing that, I was working for a big telecom company, Rogers, for like 7.5 years. And I worked various positions in that. But what I did really love was the training and development. And the facilitator that I had at the time, he was awesome. And I thought, that's really what I'd like to move into. So as I had graduated, I decided to get a couple more credits to get my certificate in training and development. And then from there, I moved on to working for like other companies and organizations in the learning role specifically. And then as I had transferred from working in public sector, I moved over to private, but actually in management consulting. So where now I'm working as an L&D professional, but I am developing programs for multiple organizations to help focus them on their leadership skills and how their leaders can be better. And so I did that for a couple of years with one organization, switched over and worked for another 5 years. And then from there, I moved on to change management, because change management happens to be one of the focuses within learning and development and leadership development. Of course, change management was like the hot topic. So I immersed myself in that. And I actually have my background as a change management professional, and I was training other people to become change management professionals as well as leadership development skills. And from there, I was a director of change management for about a year or so, and then moved back into L&D because I always fall back into L&D. It's like my passion. I love learning and development and helping people grow. And I came about to Intellex because they were such an awesome company in terms of its culture and the people, and they're very forward thinking. And I thought, this is a place that I could really have some fun and I could help others learn and develop and grow. So this is sort of like, I ended up here, and it's a really great mash of my skill sets, as well as we're having fun like every day. I can't explain how awesome it is to come to work and work with really awesome people, and we're creating extraordinary things.
Wow. I'm jealous. That's awesome. Fabulous. Culture is so huge. It's I sometimes think that there's people who join places and they're like, yeah, this is a great challenge. They're all kind of not happy here. I can do this.
You're right.
But it affects you, right? Like it sounds like you're at a place where there's already momentum and you're just like lighting that flame, right?
Exactly. So people here, they're happy to come to work, and we look at things very differently. So where a lot of organizations are all about, okay, like sort of just get things done, and they very compliant. And yes, we do compliance because Intellects is about, the environmental health, safety, and quality. So there's a compliance element or aspect of it.
Yes.
But on the flip side, they're also about people, and they genuinely care about people. And for me, it's about helping people learn and grow and develop. And our whole culture is all about care. Like, we genuinely care about people, and we want to see them grow and aspire to greatness. And for me, in my role, it's all about helping them get there and help them along that journey. So for me, I'm just happy every day when I come to work to get to work with these great people.
That's a great privilege. Yeah. I love that.
Yes.
So, okay. Now, the more people you interact with, the more there's opportunity for conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not work out. So how do you motivate individuals to work more collaboratively?
Well, it starts with an idea, and everybody has a really great idea, or at least they think it's a great idea, but you need to have that sort of fleshed out with others so that you can make that idea grow. And there's comes to a point where you got to learn respect for other people's opinions, and respect for others' thoughts, and valuing differences. We all come into a work environment or even a meeting with multiple different perspectives and experiences. And the more we can value those experiences and the diversity of it, the better the final outcome will be. So when you are able to work collaboratively with individuals, especially those that you might not even like that much, but can come in with a mindset of, I'm really going to try to listen and see if I can get at least one nugget or one good thing out of what this individual has to say. So you're forcing yourself even to work with those that you may not collaborate with often, or even want to. Something magical does happen when you switch your mindset and your perspective. That's when you can start seeing possibilities. And the more you can do that with individuals from diverse backgrounds or different parts of the organization, the better your outcome is going to be. And it also helps when it comes to commitment and getting buy-in from multiple stakeholders. So the more people that collaborate from the beginning stages, the more committed they are to the cause. And then when it comes to implementation, the easier it is because they've been part of that process with you in that journey.
That's okay. That's really sneaky.
That's one way of looking at it.
Well, because you could really sell it that way. You could just say, well, they'll give you great ideas because you're paying attention, and they'll be more bought into your idea because you actually are collaborating with them. That's fantastic. And when I meant sneaky, I meant like sneaky good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did a little bit of a research before our conversation today, and you talk about something called compelling change communications. And why is this a topic you're passionate about, and also what does it mean?
So compelling change communications is really about creating communications that are going to inspire people to want to take action. Oftentimes when we're dealing with change, somebody is trying to get you to do something differently, change your behavior, change your attitude, change your perspective. And most of us can say that we don't like to change. There's a few people who love it and they embrace it, and those who want to like drive it. But there's a lot of people that don't really want to do this on a regular basis, especially when you're asked to change frequently, as we typically are in this day and age. So you have to create the communications in such a way that's going to not only pique someone's interest, but it's going to make them feel like, you know what, I actually want to take some action, or at least I want to hear a bit more about what's happening and then decide, is this the right action that I want to take? So when I talk about compelling change communication, it's how do you focus in on your audience? So you have to know who your audience is that you're trying to convince and trying to tell them about what this change is. And oftentimes there's a miss because we don't communicate enough because we think that because we heard it like a million times because we're working on this project, that everybody else knows all about it, when in fact they don't. So there's a lack of communication. And then when we communicate it, we're not communicating the right things. So we're not communicating, why are we doing this in the first place? So if people don't know why you're asking them to do it, chances are they're not going to do it because they can't connect the dots. Or they think maybe you just went on some learning course to hear about something different and thought, hey, this is a great idea. Let me just implement this into my company and then we'll be all A-okay because we're all forward thinking. And they're like, I didn't attend that course and nor do I care. So tell me why. Why should I care about this? Why is this important to the organization? And why is this important to me? Because while it's all well and great that we have to do the public speak and talk about how this is going to benefit the organization, people are selfishly motivated. So they want to know, why is this important to me, or what's in it for me? And sometimes with change, there is no benefit to them personally. So then it's, well, how is this going to impact me? What is the ultimate impact going to be to my job or to my role? So be upfront, be transparent, be honest. And then when you're communicating with people, you want to speak in a way that's going to resonate with them. And there's people who have very different backgrounds and different personality preferences and how they communicate. So how do you communicate to the widest audience to get them on board? And so generally when I speak, I talk about like 4 steps to help engage people from all the different communication preferences. So starting off very high level with like, what's the vision? What are we trying to accomplish? And then is this going to impact me in terms of my feelings towards this particular type of change? And then what are you going to do to support me? Are you going to give me training, or am I just expected to do this? And then if I fail, am I going to get fired? Because that's usually the fear that starts to set in. And then you have those detail-orientated people that want to know, okay, well, what are the next steps? And did you think this through clearly? And what's the plan B in case something goes wrong? So you need to be able to explain all of this stuff to people. And, people will listen to varying degrees. But if you start off with like big picture, and then you start getting into, well, what is it? How do I want you to feel when or at least acknowledge that people are feeling multiple different anxieties or excitement, and then go into how we're going to support, and then the details, that usually covers pretty much everyone. And if you look at anybody who's a really good speaker, like any of our, whether they're politicians or whatnot, they kind of follow that formula, right? They talk about this big picture, this grand vision, and then we understand that some of you might be feeling X, Y, Z, anxiety, excitement, fear, concern. This is what we're going to do to help. This is the plan. And then here are the details of that plan. And by following that methodology, this is how you get the most amount of people engaged in that and excited about the change that you're trying to implement.
I really like that structure, and it almost reminds me of when you're doing, like, when people are writing persuasive pieces for like the newspaper. They'll start off right, like big, powerful, grab the attention, get everybody excited, and then the people that want more just keep going, but some just stop at that, right? That's very cool. I never thought about it in the terms of that's really reflects somebody's preference for how to communicate.
And the people that don't like to listen too much, they tune out after like the first paragraph or two. So you got to get them right at the beginning. And then those that like the details, they'll stay right with you right to the very end.
That's why my favorite is that you're probably familiar with the acronym TLDR, right? Too long, didn't read. Like every email has to be started with TLDR line.
Exactly.
I want that. Okay. I love it. That's awesome. So you're going to be speaking about that specific thing coming up, right?
Yes, at the Women in Aerospace. So I'll be speaking about the compelling change communications and how to get your stakeholders more engaged and more committed to your change.
Wow, that's going to be fun.
Yes.
Okay, so what advice would you have for someone who wants to be a change agent to their workplace, the person who really wants to make a difference and be proud of their work, but maybe are feeling like, who am I to do that?
Well, the first thing is everybody has a voice and everybody has the right to be heard. And so do you. Even if you haven't been there for a long time, or you feel that, maybe they'd want to hear it from somebody else. And if that is the case, then what you need to do is make alliances. So you have to find those influential people within the organization that others respect and they want to hear from. And the thing is with a change agent is not everybody wants to hear from everybody, right? There's some people that when they speak, they command a room and everybody wants their attention, is going to listen. So you got to find those individuals. They're highly influential and they're highly respected. In some organizations, they may not necessarily be like the CEO of the organization. It could actually be a subject matter expert, somebody who's just been working there for a long time that just knows the ins and outs, and everybody respects them and they like them. In other organizations, it could be a director or a senior executive who people they really respect and they want to hear more from them. So they would be someone that you would be going to a bit more often. Or in other cases, it could just be in a smaller team. It's just that person that is very charismatic, that people like and people want to engage in conversation with. So it really depends on the nature of the team, the group, or the group that you're trying to influence. So the other main thing for a change agent is to really know your audience, know who they are, what they want, so you can tailor the communications to them. But more importantly, who would be the best person to speak to that group. And they're going to help you make the most amount of impact. So you have to influence them. So you may have to tell them, what is the value proposition? Why is it that I'm coming to you to be that person to speak in front of everyone because of the amount of influence you have? Why is this a good idea? What's the impact that it's going to have on the organization? Show them that you've really thought it through and all the connected dots. So it's a lot of systems thinking that has to occur there. So where people can see all the interdependencies and how a decision made in one area has ripple effects on other areas within the organization. It's not just isolated to the one idea you have in this one small department, but rather the impact it has on the overall organization or the community or industry or however big you want to make that a boundary.
I don't know if you've read that book by Ray Dalio, The First Principles, and he talks about how the next level thinking is not just thinking about the first order consequences, but second order and third order consequences. Those are the ones you really want to be focused on. So that's totally aligned with what you're talking about right now. But what's really neat is you talked about, alliances and I think that there's a lot of people who come in and let's say they've, especially in L&D world, they're like, oh, everybody at my company is so archaic. They're still doing this old school page turner LMS stuff. And I've seen the future and I want to bring like virtual reality and scenarios to them. But I feel like they're like they have to just push through and be that person who brings the change instead of coming in and saying, how is this already working? And who's already got that influence that I can leverage? And then you end up in basically collaborating and creating an alliance with that person. That is so genius. That's fabulous. So much less pressure too. Just work. Wow. I am learning so much. I hope everybody is learning a lot. This is fantastic. I'm so glad we got to talk today. Yes. All right. So we talked about, building alliances and persuasion. So as far as fundamental knowledge and skills and attitude, or KSAs, that somebody needs to have to actually be good at this kind of alliance building, what do you recommend they build?
Well, confidence is one, because you're going to have to be sharing your ideas to people and you have to be confident in those ideas. And good communication skills, because you have to be able to articulate them in a way that's going to be persuasive to that individual that you're trying to convince. So this is where the influencing skills come into play. So you really just need to do your history. Like, you have to do your research on the organization and how have they typically handled change in the past, and what has worked and what hasn't worked, and why did it not work? And sometimes you may even need to address that, because what will typically happen is, as you pitch an idea that might have been pitched before, you will get we've done it before, it's not going to work, right? And they quickly try to shut it down. So you have to say, and to sort of like preempt that, say, well, I know we have tried this before and it didn't work. but this is what we're doing differently. So it shows that you've done your research, but you're also demonstrating how it will work because of these changes or these tweaks or your new proposal to get people on board, right? But you have to have the confidence to move forward with any idea. And the thing is, oftentimes people don't, as I said before, they don't like change. So as soon as they hear an idea, there's a lot of people who may say, no, I don't want to do it, because it means you have to disrupt the flow. You have to disrupt the process. And you, as a change agent, you are a disruptor. And people are a bit resistant to that. So you have to be okay with it, but know that it'll take some time. So you also have to have some patience, that you have to know that people have to go through a change curve. They're going to go through a set of emotions before they can get to the point of acceptance. And you have to just be steady along the way and give them bite-sized information to massage it and help them and show them small wins where, yes, look, it's working. Here, you try. See how that works. Oh, see, not too bad. And give them some praise and recognition. They feel better. Their confidence starts to build. Your confidence is building because you're seeing it in action and it's working, and you get closer to where you need to be.
This idea of change and how everybody's really quite resistant to it. Do you enter situations knowing it's just a part of the modus operandi? It's like they're gonna, yeah, and then it just takes the pressure off. You're like, yeah, I expected you to be no. Do you think that comes from people's fear of like inadequacy or not knowing, like all of a sudden now they're not going to be comfortable or be as skilled because they're outside of their...
Oftentimes, yes. It's a fear of not being able to perform as competently as you were used to. And there's also a reduction in your performance. So performance tends to dip as you're learning something new. And then they're already like, I have so much stuff that I have to do. Now you're adding one more thing and I got to learn that, which is slowing me down, and I have all this other stuff to do. And what if I learn this new thing, but I don't learn it to the same level that I did before? Now what? So there's like a whole fear that's associated with change. And the thing is learning professionals, we're always introducing something new, like a new program. We want people to change their behavior. We want people to change their mind. We want them to change their perspective. We want them to change a new process. We're showing them how, step by step. And we try to make it come across as easy, but we're also oftentimes miss that the person is feeling a certain level of anxiety as soon as they're coming to the training class. So, you can address that right from the beginning. So, how many of you are here because you were told to, and then a lot of people, I told I had to come, it's mandatory training. Well, how many of you are feeling a little bit nervous around learning this new thing? And you'll find that you'll probably get more hands. Well, let's talk about how we can alleviate some of that. Like, we're going to help you through this process. We're going to show you how to do this. We're going to give you multiple opportunities to help get you to where you need to be. And even if you don't, I'm still here to support you through this process. So their stress levels start to reduce. Now they're like, okay, someone's going to help me. I can be part of this. I can listen. I can learn. And what's the consequence if I don't learn? Will be just more help versus you're going to lose your job. And that tends to go to the back of people's minds, especially when it's a major implementation or a whole complete restructure or reframe or a new process being implemented, that this got a conversion from the old to the new. People have that kind of fear that's going through their minds. If we can help to reduce that or show them that we're working with them to get them up to speed, that helps to reduce that resistance. And now they're a little bit more open to hearing and a little bit more open to trying things new.
So it sounds like when you're designing any kind of intervention, you're thinking long-term. You're thinking support over like a while.
Yeah. So it's not just the learning event. Oftentimes people think like, oh, they go to training, it's good. There's nothing more that we need to do. They're up to speed. They should be able to go back to work and get it all done. And there's no issue, which isn't true. And we all know this. And most of us are sitting here listening to this and laughing because we know that the training is just an event. But it's not the change in behavior that happens after the fact. So you do have to have supports put in place. So this is where we start looking at sustainment activities and reinforcement strategies. And how do we make sure that the training and that new change in behavior sticks? How do we make sure that they don't revert back to the old behavior? So now we need to partner with like our talent and our HR teams to look at what are the processes to put in place to ensure that people can't revert back to old behavior. Or we might need to work with like IT or other functions within the departments within the organization, so that we can make sure that when this person goes back, they can't go back and do the old thing. This is something new, and it helps make that stick. And then we go back and we check, because people are not going to continue doing it if no one's going to check. They'll sort of revert back to the old behavior because they're looking over their shoulder. Like, nobody's watching me. I can go back and do the old thing and nobody's going to care and I'm good to go. But once you realize it's like, I'm locked out. Exactly. And when you're locked out and you can't go back, or someone's checking to make sure that you're doing it, increases the likelihood that you're going to comply, because you know somebody is coming in to review this, and then they can also help and coach you along the way. So having on-site coaching too also helps to alleviate some of those fears that people may have. If, oh, I go back to work and I can't get this right, like, what do I do then? So I do think about it from a bigger picture. What do we need to do to help sustain this?
That's fantastic. I think you're right. We are all laughing at, oh, you can't just be the training, but how many times I've seen that, and that's
all the time. All the time. It's like a Band-Aid fix.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. So, okay, you said that in order to be able to do this well, you definitely need confidence. Well, a lot of people are very skilled, but confidence is just lacking. How do you build confidence? What's your advice?
But how do I build confidence in the people that I work with, or how do I build confidence in myself?
Like, if you were looking at you were mentoring another you, and super skilled, smart, everything, just no confidence. What are some exercises or some ideas that somebody like should do to build it up? What do you think?
I usually start with their strengths. What are you good at? And let's work on making you the best at that. When you sit there and dwell too much on all the stuff that they're not doing as great, because there's a whole philosophy around, let's figure out what your strengths are and what are your weaknesses, and let's work on those areas of opportunity to get them up to speed so all around you're amazing. But if you can focus in on some of those strengths and like really exercise that muscle, you tend to start to flourish, because now you start to see how much better you are at that because you keep practicing that. And I'll compliment the person. I give them opportunities to demonstrate that strength more often. And then you start seeing confidence being built, and their creativity starts to flourish a bit more, because they're confident in, I'm good at this one thing, so how could I be even more amazing at it? And somehow through osmosis, like, a lot of those areas of opportunity also start to get pulled up, because they're working on being really awesome in this one area. But you can't just it never is just that one area. Usually it'll trickle down into other parts too. And then you start seeing, when they start feeling more confident in one area, it starts transposing in other areas too. And then you can start saying, hey, look how great you did over here too. And then they're like, oh, really? And then you start drawing the parallels between that one thing that they were doing really well, and then how they're now doing so much better at it, and the other parts, and how they're pulling it together. And sometimes it's just a matter of taking the time to work with that individual one-on-one and uncovering what are some of your fears. And some of those fears are just made up in their head. It's not even real. Some teacher at some age may have told them something. Maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a friend, or maybe it was like an ex partner who told them something and it stuck. Yeah. And they keep carrying that weight throughout their whole career until you can tell them that's not true. Like, actually, can you see that you're really good at this, and whatever they're saying, it doesn't mean anything. So you have to negate some of that. So I would do an exercise with them to find out and uncover what are some of their fears, what are some of those myths that they keep holding on to that they believe to be true but are actually just falsehoods. And let's start to demystify them and show them in their own work, or in their activities, or in things that they say and or do that exemplify the complete opposite to what they're believing. And when they start seeing that with multiple examples, then they can start letting that stuff go, because that is not who they are. That's who someone put a label on them, and that doesn't define who they are, especially if it was like years ago. Your past is your past. Who you are is up to you, and you can change that through your future. So let's not focus on or dwell on all the negative things that others may have said, and focus on all the positive stuff that you have right now. And you can change that going forward, should you choose to, or just build on that if it's already really good. And that's kind of my my MO when I'm working with individuals. I don't really want to dwell on those weaknesses or areas of opportunity someone may speak. I want to focus on what are you awesome at, and let's build that up, and let's get rid of those negative thoughts because they're not helping. They're just hindering you right now.
I like your approach very much. It's very cool. There's, those personality tests where they tell you what kind of person you are. There's a tendency for people to be like, look, I'm a this. And then they just focus on it so fully without saying, yeah, but you're a rock star this. Oh,
right. That's right.
Totally, you're right. And I never thought about it. The fact that, when I think about, those ultra successful people, you think like Steve Jobs, but he was kind of more like a savant and then neglected all the other areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So think about that. That's normal, but it really, I don't know if there's necessarily well-rounded people, but like you say, once you build up that confidence, the other things kind of tend to come up because it's almost like you're more open to that growth.
Mm-hmm.
You're not limiting yourself. Yeah, that's very, very cool. That's going to be, we're going to make a t-shirt out of that. All right. That's awesome. Okay. So, what are elements that take communication to the next level? Let's say we're at, one of the things that people struggle with a lot, especially, and it's not even independent consultants. It's really mostly people that work in training departments, and they feel like there's silos between, like, they're not connected to the business. They feel removed from HR. What are some things that they can do to increase that communication, do you think?
My approach typically is just listen, right? When you go into meetings, sometimes you have a tendency of you want to talk and you want to share all the stuff, these great ideas you have. But I personally, at least in the first few, just be quiet and just listen. Hear what people are saying, and then have meetings with them individually. And I do this because I want to know who they are as a person, and I want to make a connection with them. But I also want to hear firsthand, what are their challenges? What are the things that keep them up at night? And what is the change that they want to see? Whether that's the new program, new process, whatever that might be. And once you meet with multiple different stakeholders and you do that same exercise with them, you'll notice a couple of common threads and themes. And you may also notice that, oh, look, this person, they were misunderstood about this particular area, or this person's needs have never been met for the past how many years. How can we make sure that that is happening for them? And I can remember earlier on in my career, I was given a task to create this training program that couldn't get off the ground for like 5 years before I had joined. So I thought, oh, okay, thanks, right? but what I did do is I met with each of the stakeholders individually and found out why could we not move this forward? What's the issue here? And each one of them had their own challenge that they felt was not being heard by everybody else. So when I designed the overall solution, which was a learning program in this case, and learning programs aren't always the solution, but it was for this one. And I said, okay, well, you know what? This is what you said. And you mentioned in the meeting that I had with you that you wanted to see. And look, here it is in this solution. And over here, you said, this is what you wanted. And this is what I put in the solution. So then when people start seeing that, oh, she really took the time to listen. And now all of these different ideas have been pulled together in this solution that is now encompassing everything. You got buy-in and you're getting more commitment because they felt like they've been heard. So a lot of times communication, the key to that is just listening, really taking the time to understand your stakeholders, their needs, their wants, their challenges, and then bringing a solution that's going to address that. And sometimes you can't address everything. But if you could address even one or two of those things, at least the person feels valued. And making people feel valued makes them feel like they're part of the solution. And then they're more apt to wanting to be part of that and help you move it forward. So for me, I would say with communication is definitely listening and knowing your audience really well. Those are the two key things that I find really kicks it up a notch. And it also helps you create something that's so much better than it would be had you just ran rogue and did it all by yourself in isolation and then came back and said, hey guys, what do you think of this great idea? And they might like it, but they'll like it better when they feel like they're part of it.
Definitely. One of the things that I was told as a good designer will always leave some flaws as well, so that the your client can find them, feel validated, and And I mean, there's part of that, right? There's always that. But I like this idea of shut up and listen, right? It really is. And
Yeah.
just see because as far as I'm concerned, the training department is there to augment and help the business. So you're there to hear what everybody else has to say. That's really
Right.
very good advice. Okay. What I love this because people bring up the coolest stuff. Not coolest as in I've never heard of it before, but just, how people like to learn. And this is interesting. So what is your favorite resource for personal learning? Where do you go?
Honestly, this might sound cliche, but I tend to go to Google. It sounds really silly, but that is like my first go-to for everything. It's like, if I don't know something, I'm going to Google and I'm going to type it in, and then it will likely spit out a couple of different sites for me to find really good research, or I find some obscure author who wrote something that was really neat, and then I can learn something from, there too. But my second resource outside of Google, all joking aside, would be a mentor. And I found a mentor is extremely invaluable, not only to your current career, but your future career progression. And I have multiple mentors as well as a coach to help me with my career and help me to get to where I need to be. So you want to pick somebody who is where you aspire to be. You also need somebody who is where you're at right now. And I say this for two reasons, because you need the person that you aspire to be for obvious reasons, because they're going to help you understand and navigate things that you have not experienced before. And they're going to help you to identify those areas that you need to work on a bit, but also they're going to tell you things that you didn't really want to hear, but you need to hear in order to grow. But the person who is at the same level as you, they're also a good person to bounce stuff off, and they know how you're feeling, so they can relate to you. And so you may decide, this career path seems like a really good idea. What do you think? And they're going to say, oh, well, this is what I'm going through right now. And you can relate to each other on that level. At least you can bounce off ideas there. And then you have the other added benefit of having the other mentor that may have more experience, who can then shed some additional light that you might not have thought of. So you need both of those individuals. Mm-hmm. And then you've got like a coach, and a coach is somebody that you may pay for their services, but they're really going to help you take your whole entire career, your development, your thought process to another level entirely. Just like a mentor will, but this one is a bit different because you're now paying somebody to help you with that. And I've paid like thousands of dollars to help with a coach to help me in terms of my career, help me in terms of how I may even dress, how I would design, how I come across, how I communicate with others, even opportunities like, speaking in front of the 2,500 people. Like that was a really huge highlight for me, which was a lot of fun. But, I may not have actually done that if it wasn't for a coach. So, this is where you need to have those individuals in your life to help you be successful at it. And like one of my biggest coaches is JT Fox, and he's helped me with a lot of my coaching and speaking and giving me those opportunities to make that happen. So, I do owe a lot to him. And I also have other mentors that I owe a lot to them and their experience and just being patient with me and talking me through things that I just wouldn't even have thought of if it wasn't for them.
That's a really cool sense of humbleness you have there. You're just like, hey, I need help. And this is, that's really cool. Now, so you said it's interesting because I think that when you actually pay for a coach, there's a certain level of accountability. Like they say, people who pay attention. So you'd be like, listen, I invested in this person. You're basically investing in yourself, right? Yeah. So that's
Absolutely.
fantastic. So as far as, finding a good mentor, how do you go about that? Do you just go in company? You're like, you look like a good person. I want to be where you are. Help me out.
Sometimes it can be that easy. Other times you might have to go looking for them. So if you have a particular industry or a particular interest, you might need to go search them out. LinkedIn sometimes is really good for that. You can reach out to people. And I find often if you just ask, there's a lot of people who are willing to help. Others I have come across in my career, maybe I reported to them or I worked with them and I saw, this person is just inspiring. Like my current manager right now, she is amazing. She is completely inspiring. Faith is, I can't, I'm so grateful to have her as a boss, but not only is she accomplished, but she's also really good at telling me hard things too sometimes to help me be better. And so I look up to her as a mentor as well as, a leader too. But if it wasn't for her, there's a lot of things I probably wouldn't have learned about myself. And each time I get new managers, I learn and I grow and I develop. And I'm really grateful that I've had a lot of really awesome ones along the way that have really taken an interest in helping me with my career and develop. So sometimes it really is just that easy. Hey, can you help me here? And other times, maybe you talk to a friend and your friend might network with someone and then they can introduce you to someone else, or your current manager. You can ask them, this is what I'm looking for. Do you know somebody or do you have a friend that could help me in that particular area? And they can open their network to you if you're looking for something specific.
Fabulous advice. Yeah. LinkedIn is also an awesome source. I mean, you can basically, any head of anything, you can just reach out to them if you want to, right? So that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So what was one of the most or best, most impactful lessons that you've learned over your career? Oh, yes. Go for it. I'm like, yes, I do need to ask that question. Go for it.
One of the most impactful lessons, I suppose it might be the saying that I had was like, don't dim your light because others can't stand how bright you shine. And I had a friend who had sent that over to me and I was like, okay. And sometimes it's because you feel beaten down or you feel like you can't do more, or the people that are around you just aren't necessarily valuing the contributions that you're bringing. And then you start to shrink. And then you're not giving your 100% because you don't feel like anyone's really noticing. But the thing is that people are noticing. They notice everything, whether you think so or not. And sometimes you might need to just make a change to find another area that you can shed your light. You can be creative. You can work with really awesome people and everything sort of gels and works together, or you find it in other areas and aspects of your life. So, you have your work life, you have your personal life, and maybe things are okay at work, but you can do more in your personal life too to augment or offset that. Everything doesn't have to come from one source. And that is another lesson too. Like, you can find fulfillment in other areas of your life aspects and helping others learn or grow, or dedicating your time, whether it's through mentoring others or giving back to the community, or just helping people. Generally speaking, there's a lot of really good feelings and positive energies that come out of being able to help somebody else to get to where they need to be. So I share that with others. When I see that they seem down, I just tell them, don't dim your light. Like, you have so much to give. Just keep going. And somehow, everything will tend to work itself out. And I firmly believe that. And I found that in my entire life. Even things that I don't understand at that moment, it makes sense later. And everything happens for a reason. And I remember there was a job that I'd wanted way back in the day, and it didn't work out, and I was pretty bummed about it. And I couldn't understand, why can't I move? Why can't I go into another job? And then I was listening to, was it Joel Osteen? It was just on TV, and I heard this.
I love
and he was saying sometimes you are in a position and you're there longer than you might want to be, because your job is actually to help somebody else. And then it took a reframe for me, and I was looking at it like, oh, okay, maybe even though I really want to move up in my career right now, maybe my job isn't not to move up, but maybe it's to help somebody. And there was somebody there that needed that additional guidance and support. And I had stayed for a couple months longer to help get them to where they needed to be. And then through that energy of helping them, another opportunity availed itself, and then, timing all worked out. So then I come back to my core philosophy of everything happens for a reason. You just have to sometimes do a reframe to see what that is. So I guess the little couple of lessons learned in there is, Don't let your light dim, even though you might feel like it's not working for you right now. Just keep shining bright, keep remaining positive, and keep doing what you have to do. And then note that you are where you need to be right now, even if you can't figure that out, because everything's supposed to happen when it's supposed to happen. So you just make the best of that and help others around you. And then as you move on, your job is to give others other opportunities and help them to learn and grow and develop. And that's kind of the philosophy that I live by.
Nice. Very positive. And it's what's kind of interesting is that you said that really the way to get out of your own bad funk is to help other people.
Yeah.
And then that energy it flows back to you, right? It does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay. So, what is a resource that you initially dismissed and then suddenly it resonated later for you?
Oh, it was like in my, I think maybe third or fourth year of university, and I was taking this course on training and learning, and then they told us to read this book called Flawless Consulting by Peter Block. And initially I thought, why are we reading this? I don't understand. I just want to be a trainer. I just want to be able to design stuff. And now you're talking to me about consulting? Like, I'm not a consultant by any means. And after reading the book, some of the key concepts resonated, but it didn't actually come into fruition until I started working as an internal consultant. And then when people started referring to me as that term, then it all started to click. My role, whether or not I am, considered like management consulting or training, you're always a consultant. You're always helping others understand what needs to be done. You're always trying to gain commitment to a cause. You're always trying to convince or communicate a specific idea. And this is what consultants do. And then there's a different role that external consultants play versus internal consultants, and how you're viewed by the organization. So internal consultants, they have a lot of subject matter expert of the organization, how it works, and they can provide a lot of key insights. And then external consultants come in with a vast amount of experiences that some organizations like, because they want to hear, well, what does the industry have to say about this? Or what are the best practices? But then you still need the internal consultant to help make it work for that organization, to help configure or customize it so that it works for them. So you need both. In essence, in order for a project to work well. So you're going to want some expert best practices of what others are doing, but you also need the internal person to help make it work for that organization. And when they both can work really well together, again, that's where the magic happens. So they can really collaborate and work and create some magnificent opportunities as well as solutions that are going to work for the organization. So I would say that that's a really good book to read. Got a lot of really good insights in there. And for me, it took a while for that to click in until I started working more so in the field.
I think that's a lot of those texts. You just feel you're like, why am I doing this? And then if it's not expressly expressed to you that, I think even if it is, you'll need this when you're working, you'll be like, yeah, okay. Right. You get exactly. it. So that's really cool that you were able to see that. That's great. Okay. This has been like just awesome, fabulous experience. I wish I was closer because I could go over and be like, can I hang out with you some more? Because
you can absolutely hang out with me.
Wonderful energy.
Toronto.
It's so fun. Great. So if people want to see more of you, learn more about you, get in touch, what do they do? Where do they go?
They can go on to LinkedIn and find me there. I'll accept your request. You can let them know that, I saw you on our video chat that we had today. And so it's Siobhan Brown Calderbank right now. So I recently got married. So a lot of my old friends still know me as Brown, and we're sort of doing the transition thing. But yeah, that's probably the best way to get in touch with me or in contact with me is through LinkedIn.
Okay, fabulous. And if they wanted to attend an event or anything that you're doing, you're going to have it. You share things in your account all the time. Fabulous. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that is
what's coming up.
That is what you should do, everybody. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Glad we got the technology working.
Thank you. Yay! Thank you for having me. Appreciate that, Anna.
It was so much fun. And also, you're just a total inspiration. I think so many people are going to get so much value out of this. I can't wait to share it. So as soon as I do, I will let you know.
Okay, great. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Take
All
care.
right.
Have a great rest of the day.
Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to the E-Learning Scenario Design Podcast with Anna Sabramowitz.